Welcome back to the Owl Podcast with me, Olivia.
And me, Liberty. Today we are going to introduce you to America's first markswoman, Annie Oakley.
She was born with the name Phoebe Ann Moses on August 13, 1860, but her family affectionately called her Annie. Her mother, Susan Wise Moses, was married to Jacob Moses, and together they lived in Loudoun County, Ohio.
Her father taught her how to shoot, and she showed promise from a young age. Her first shot was when she was 8 years old, and she hit a squirrel with a headshot using her father's muzzle-loading rifle. Sadly, Jacob died with pneumonia when Annie was 6 years old. Annie was then placed at Loudoun County Infirmary with Superintendent Eddington and his family, which housed the mentally ill, orphans, and the elderly. She took care of young children in exchange for learning sewing skills.
She remained with the Eddingtons until she was around 13 to 14 years old, then went back to her mother, who had remarried for a third time to a man named Joseph Shaw. She had 5 siblings, and her family had little money, so she often resorted to hunting with her father's old Kentucky rifle to shoot small game for a grocery store in Greenville, Ohio.
Annie was so successful with hunting, she was able to pay $200 in mortgage with the money she earned when she was only 15. Can you believe the pressure put on her at such a young age to care for 8 people, especially a job that at this time period was technically given to men? #girlboss.
It is very impressive. Her shooting skills even brought the attention of Jack Frost, not the DreamWorks character, but a hotel owner who was purchasing her game. He convinced her to participate in a shooting contest against the well-known marksman Frank E. Butler. Butler was on tour and challenged local shooters to competitions, those of which he won nearly every time. Of course, Annie accepted, not one to be frightened away.
Annie won the first match with 25 shots out of 25 attempts. Butler missed one of his shots. Butler became fascinated with Annie and her skills, and the two began a courtship and got married on August 23, 1876. Annie was still only 16, and Butler was around 26. While it may seem strange today, in a society even more patriarchal and misogynistic, in the 1800s, women marrying at a young age to an older man was deemed normal.
Annie and Butler first appeared on a show together on May 1, 1882. Their combined talents for shooting made them prime candidates for classic Western entertainment. Butler's usual show partner was sick, so Annie took over, holding objects for Frank to shoot and did some of her own shooting as well. This is when she adopted the stage name Oakley, which she chose as her professional surname after the name of an Ohio town near her birth home.
For the next few years, they traveled across the country giving shooting shows with their dog George. Then, in March of 1884 in St. Paul, Minnesota, Annie became friends with Lakota leader Sitting Bull.
Sitting Bull won the famous Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. He was impressed with Oakley's shooting, modest appearance, and assured manner. Sitting Bull gave her the nickname Little Sure Shot, and they became fast friends. Sitting Bull considered adopting Oakley 8 years after the Battle of Little Bighorn.
In 1884, the Butlers joined the Cell Brothers Circus as champion rifle shots, but only stayed with the circus for 1 season. They eventually joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show in 1885. With Buffalo Bill, Annie became the star of the show. They advertised her as champion markswoman.
Oakley was known for her difficult trick shots, which included shooting backwards while using a mirror for aim, hitting dimes in midair, splitting playing cards with the edge held facing her at 30 yards away. She would shoot a cigarette from her husband's mouth and fill a playing card with several bullet holes before it even hit the ground. Oakley snuffed out candles with bullets and shot the cork off bottles without breaking the glass. Her own bullets were even stamped with her name. And can you imagine that? Someone to have that amount of talent from hard work is insane, but Oakley's was more from natural-born talent.
Yeah, she was definitely one of a kind, and she was so strong. Oakley was only 5 feet tall, and she regularly held her rifle, which was over 6.5 pounds, for several hours.
Back to Buffalo Bill's show, Butler happily accepted a position as Oakley's manager or assistant, and they remained with the show for 17 years. In 1887, they went to England to join in the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria, where Oakley was the highlight of the press.
They returned to Europe in 1889, and Oakley earned a star billing and continued to tour in Paris, Spain, and Italy. Buffalo Bill used her fame to demonstrate that shooting was for both women and men alike.
Unfortunately, Oakley suffered a great injury to her back during a train accident, underwent 5 spinal surgeries, and 2 years of rehab at age 41. They were forced to leave the show in 1901.
Oakley, however, still longed to perform. She rejoined another show called The Young Buffalo Show in 1911. Then, in 1913, the couple retired from the arena and settled in Cambridge, Maryland. Ironically, they went back into the arena not even a year later with their new dog, Dave, and Oakley would shoot apples off of his head as a trick shot.
In 1971, Buffalo Bill died, and this was also around the time when World War I started. Oakley wanted to take action.
Oakley actually offered multiple times to create a women's infantry, writing a letter first during the Spanish-American War and secondly during World War I.
Oakley actually wrote a letter to President McKinley when the United States was going to go to war with Spain, saying,
"Dear Sir, I for one feel confident that your good judgment will carry America safely through without war. But in case of such an event, I am ready to place a company of 50 lady sharpshooters at your disposal. Every one of them will be an American, and as they will furnish their own arms and ammunition, will be little, if any, expense to the government. Very truly, Annie Oakley."
Again, during World War I, she extended her offer by writing to Secretary of War Newton Baker, which was once again declined.
Ever the patriot, she instead joined the National War Work Council of the Young Men's Christian Association, or the YMCA, with her husband. There, she held expositions and presented lectures at Army posts to help soldiers with their shooting skills.
But beyond her patriotism,
Annie Oakley held some interesting political views.
She had some contradicting beliefs about women's role in society, advocating for equal pay and personal protection, but speaking out against women's suffrage.
She reportedly said that the concept of women voting was acceptable, quote-unquote, if only the good women voted, implying that while the majority of men were competent enough to vote, the majority of women weren't.
But she also said that all women should have the right to carry a gun and know how to use it in order to protect themselves. I quote, "I would like to see every woman know how to handle a gun as naturally as they know how to handle babies."
And she didn't just talk about teaching women to shoot. She herself taught thousands of women to shoot, often forming friendships with her pupils.
Oakley then visited Pinehurst, North Carolina in 1916. Recovering from injuries from the railroad accident in 1901, Oakley did smaller exhibits for people who were staying at Pinehurst and taught shooting sessions, coaching over 3,000 of Pinehurst guests. Butler managed the Pinehurst Gun Club.
Oakley and Butler officially retired in the early 1920s after they were involved in a car crash that left both of them severely injured. Oakley and Butler spent some time at Pinehurst before going to Maryland and other parts of North Carolina as well. But in Greenville, Ohio is where Oakley finally died on November 3rd, 1926.
Butler then died only a few weeks later on November 21st. He refused to eat after Oakley passed and ended up starving to death.
Which is pretty crazy, but kind of girl boss too.
It is, it really is. So that's pretty much the life story of Annie Oakley, and I want to know your thoughts, Liberty. What are you thinking about her right now?
Well, I have to say, in my research about her, she came across as a bit of a historical pick-me girl. She was definitely known for really adhering to the societal standard of modesty and demureness for a Victorian woman. And, well, I'm not against women adhering to any societal standard, especially if they choose to use that to help them further their careers. It did seem like she kind of looked down upon women who didn't act that way. She had a rival named Lillian Smith, who was known for being much more flashy and adding a more seductive element to her performances. And Oakley definitely seemed to look down on that aspect of her. In fact, when attending the Jubilee that was mentioned before, Queen Victoria really only acknowledged Annie Oakley and ignored Lillian Frances Smith, who was also there, and Annie Oakley never stood up or said anything about that. On top of that, she was also kind of known for not having very many friendships with women. As I said before, really the only time she formed friendships with women was when she was teaching them to shoot. And then clearly her views on women's suffrage also are the cherry on top of the pile. So although she definitely is a feminist icon for bringing so much views to women in shooting and women in performance, I think that should be taken with a grain of salt paired with her personal beliefs.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that as well, and especially because she was advocating for women and shooting. So it wasn't just about her. She was really trying to push women into shooting as well, but yet, which you can see clearly as she was trying to form regiments of women during the wars and training them as well. And she did train women at Pinehurst, which is partly why we mentioned that, because that was a huge aspect of her time there. But then again, like you said with Lillian, how she undermined her because she added that seductive element into her performances, which, you know, nowadays people are respectful of how women choose to present themselves, and back then that was not the case. But regardless, Oakley did break gender barriers.
Yeah, and I think we have to take into consideration that she was growing up and living in a time where this view of women was proliferated, and she mainly did have men as companions, friends, like leaders in her life. So it's not altogether surprising that those influences made her act the way she did.
Similarly, not exactly sure when this one, but whenever she was on Buffalo Bill's show, the majority of people in that performance were men. So whenever she was traveling with them for how many years of her life? 20 years of her life? Probably more. She was centered only around men.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's also an important part to remember. But regardless, even today, just hearing about a woman in the 1800s going out, doing what she wanted to do, making it, becoming so successful that today, her name is still mentioned and she's remembered is amazing.
Yeah, there are aspects of her that really should be looked up to. She was a generally really amazing person.
Indeed, she was. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we hope to see you back for our next episode.
Thank you so much.